Hi you guys, welcome back to Bright Violet Arts. My name is Valerie and today I'm going to show you how I paint these very delicate, airy, transparent flowers with the Karin Brushmarker PRO. The Karin Brushmarker PRO is a line of watercolor markers and I love them so much for illustration. They do require watercolor paper and I'm using paper by the Canson brand today. I also need some clean water, a paper towel, and a round paintbrush. I like to paint these with a size 4 round brush, but you can use other sizes as well. An optional supply is a circle making template, but for guidelines, I will be using a pencil and an eraser. Another option is a heat gun or a hair dryer if you want to speed up the drying time of the project. For the flower today, I'm going to use some pink and some yellow, but of course you can use any colors that you like. I will list my specific colors in the description box below. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the Brushmarker PRO, this is what it looks like. It is just a like a flexible brush nib on a water-based pen, but the ink is a little unique in this pen. It's actually like a faux watercolor paint. So what's happening here is I'm just putting down a swatch of color, and then now I'm using a brush with just clean water on it to like liquefy that color and drag it across the paper. That's going to start the pigment moving and traveling across that water to show a range of different values. And that's basically all there is to what we're doing today. Is we're going to be creating these repetitive flower petals just like the one I'm doing now. And it's going to create the look of a transparent or translucent flower. Each petal is an oval with corners, or I guess like a football shape. And I'm going to draw in one side of that oval with the marker, and then I'm going to come back in with clean water and draw the other side of the oval, and then fill in the middle with more clean water. If I find that I have too much water on my petal, I can use the brush to blot some off, and I'll just manipulate that color until I see that it has settled more around the edges and less in the middle of the shape. That is what's going to give us that translucent illusion. I'm going to draw some guidelines now for the flower. It's going to be 2 circles, one inside the other. And if you don't have a circle making template, you can use like a dish or a cup from your kitchen, and then a coin or a small jar for the inside circle. The first step of this design is to paint in the center of the flower. So I have just put down a stroke of marker in my lightest yellow, and then I picked up my brush with some water on it, and I used that water to dilute the ink and drag it across the rest of the circle so that it settles in kind of a nice uneven distribution. Once the center of the flower is completely dry, I'm going to come in with my lightest shade of pink, and I'm going to start the first petal. The next petal that I paint is going to be on the direct opposite part of the circle. So I'm going to go 180 degrees the opposite direction to paint the next petal, and this is going to be part of my plan for keeping everything evenly spaced around the flower without having to draw guidelines for all the angles. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to paint in the first 4 petals like the directions on a compass. I'm going to paint in a petal for north, east, south, and west. If I can get these first 4 petals lined up correctly, then everything else after it will be much easier because I'll have these like guideposts already in place. And you'll see what I mean when we get to the next layer. But I'm working on these petals as independent units. I'm just doing 1 petal at a time to make sure that it is distributed the way that I want it before I let it dry. Now that I have the first 4 petals in place, I can come back and fill in the gaps with an additional petal in between each one. It's very important to know at this point that the petals should never touch each other when they're wet. So I'm going to be drawing in these side-by-side petals where they are close together but never actually touching, because if they were to touch, the ink would pool between the two shapes and it would look very messy. So to avoid that, what I'm doing now is I'm stopping for a dry break. I'm going to dry this whole layer and then come back and erase the guidelines on the inside and the outside circles. And then we can start layer 2. So this is going to be the same color marker that I used for the first group of petals, and I'm using the exact same technique. The only thing I'm doing different is I am staggering the position of the petals this time, so that these petals on this layer will fit neatly overlapping the petals below them, and it'll give a look of like a stacked effect. One thing to know about this stage is that the petals are going to look better if you make an effort to at least overlap a little bit every petal with the one next to it, because we're trying to create an effect of a translucent or a transparent flower, and the overlapping petals are really the main thing that sells that illusion. When I complete this layer, I'm going to stop again for a dry break. Make sure all these petals are completely dry before I go on to another layer. For the next layer, the petals are going to be only about half as tall as the first layer of petals. And I've also chosen to change my marker color. So I am going with a more of a red color over the pink first layer. I'm going with a red second layer. And that is just to give some extra dimension to my flower when it's done. That's optional, of course. You do not have to change your marker color. But if you are going to change your marker color, I recommend that you start with your lightest color on the large petals in the back on the first layer, and then move to darker colors as you progress inward to the smaller petals. Ordering your colors in that way from lightest to darkest will help the details stand out on your finished flower. After taking a dry break for that first layer of petals, I'm now just filling in the gaps with another ring of petals in the same size and in that same color. And that is going to complete the flower petal portion of the design. But now I'm going to go in with my darkest red marker, and I'm not using my paintbrush this time. I'm just using the marker itself directly on the paper. Having this darker colored ring around the center helps give that center some dimension. It makes it look more rounded and like kind of puffy. Just for some extra contrast, I'm also using a fluorescent orange marker now to go around the bottom edge of each petal. Just a subtle difference if you add that second color, but I thought it looked nice. And then for some additional contrast on the center, I'm going to go back in with another layer of orange and yellow markers, and I'm going to kind of blend it all together around the edges of the center there. It gives it kind of a nice vintage looking feel to the painting, I think, the way those edges blend together in the center. Thank you for painting with me today, you guys. If you have any questions, you can ask below in the comments, and you can also find more of my work on Instagram at Bright Violet Arts. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I will be back again soon with more content like this on illustration and journaling. See you there.